Maybe we can talk about your moving to the HDB. When was that you moved to Upper Cross Street?
1980.
1980. This was actually the period when URA found out they have been getting rid of people from Chinatown too much, and they want people to move back now, isn't it? You are part of that group of people, right, who began to drift back to Chinatown in a sense. I mean, you didn't drift back, lah. You were never far away, but probably there were other people who moved to some satellite new towns, and then being encouraged to come back because you already discovered there's no more life in Chinatown.
Yeah, I suppose within any kind of even business area, right? You must have your immediate customers, and the immediate customers are actually your community. And if the community doesn't know each other, I think that's a challenge. So my one grouse I always have is when we shift the people in a hurry from a village into HDB flats, sometimes they just offer them places all over Singapore. So that community spirit is broken, right? I think in some places they're more lucky in the sense that it's almost like the entire village is kind of shifted to around the area, so that at least they still can get in contact. And of course, the better still is if they still have their own shops, their own wet market. This is where that community continues. A community needs years, decades to develop, but we keep destroying them, right? But of course, there are other agendas that's more important. We are in a hurry to develop and have a better life for us. And I suppose these are some of the sacrifices we think we could take. But now that we have kind of arrived in some ways, when we look back, there's a lot of lessons to learn. And what are we going to do going forward?
When you first moved into Block 34 Upper Cross Street, how was the neighborhood like?
This block is very interesting, right? You have a big part of people coming in from Tau Fu Gai side, the Cantonese speaking side, right? Not very big, but most of them come from Teochew Street. So the intra-flat movement is very high. You don't go out, you go upstairs, you go downstairs because Amma live upstairs, right? Uncle live downstairs and all this. So that is still there, although a lot of them have moved out, a lot of new people has moved in. But I think that kind of community you can still see to a certain extent. The coffee shop. They will gather in the coffee shop, right? Because there's no other space where they can sit around. And because the way it's being designed, I saw one community always gather together in one block, but the way they put the chairs, it's impossible for them to talk without shouting at each other. So I think that kind of thing is a challenge. RC could do better than that, right? But other than karaoke, I think it's very difficult for them to get these people together. On top of it, problem is always if there are less older people, the younger people don't have time. I mean, they try very hard. In the early days, I used to join them tours, and the old folks, what kind of tours they like? They like tours to go buy food and go temples. So it's quite easy to organize, right? 3 temples and 1 place to eat, they're very happy. But I think it's getting less and less now. I hardly see any offer of this kind of tours in my block, or at least in the notice board that I see.
These are organized by the town council?
RC. The RC
okay.
people. Yeah. Usually the RCs are the one because they're supposed to reach out to all the people within that so-called small number of blocks of flats. But it's not easy because I suppose everybody's busy working, making a living, and the RC is only one of those numerous activities that they might be involved in.
In those days, in the 80s, the HDB blocks, did the neighbors close their doors?
I think by practice already, everybody's closing the door. They only open, and if you happen to see each other, we greet each other, right? Like my case, until recently, we always have a lot of plants outside our house. And so it's always watering time. Everybody's watering the plants. and then we get to talk. But usually the older folks tend to talk to each other. So in those days, my mother-in-law would talk to the next door neighbor, who's a Teochew, and the other neighbor is Hainanese, and further is another Cantonese, and they could even go out together. And of course, slowly one by one left. So right now, the only neighbor we have is only one that next to mine, the old auntie, and we still greet each other every now and then when we meet each other. But her children has all left already. They have their own families, so communication is less, and there is no what they call activities or events that they will bring together. In the old days, there used to be 7-month prayers, and I think the operator has already closed down because probably there's not enough participants. The only one that's left in our block are the former residents of Teochew Street. They still organize it every year. And so that community is still very strong, even though I think not all the people are staying in this area. But their bond is still very strong because they all have the same so-called source from Teochew Street or the Teochew part of Chinatown.
Yeah. I mean, I guess as you said earlier, you can build a community anywhere, right? Whether it's HDB or shop house, it just needs time.
Yes. Time, I suppose space. You still need some physical space. I mean, of course, the young ones in the condo, they always have the WhatsApp or whatever they can do, Well, for the old folks, it's still face to face. And nothing like face to face because that's how relationship grows.
Yeah.
Of course, that's how you also can fight.
Do you know anything about those, those multi-purpose complex, right, that they built in the 70s and 80s? Shops, lower floors, and then you have, 20, 30 stories of flats, residents on the above that kind of podium block. You know anyone living there and how it was like to live in one of those blocks? Like People's Park Complex, above.
If you're talking about People's Park Complex, I only visited once down there, but I don't think they depend a lot on what's downstairs, right? More so that in People's Park Complex, other than old days when they have an emporium, right? You cannot get your needs there because there's no wet market. Uh, the restaurants slowly one by one disappear, right? Um, so I think they probably go next door to the old People's Park Hawker Center. Yeah, but of course, People's Park Complex is a very interesting place because my understanding is the tenants, there are a lot of subtenants, and so who really lives there and who are investing in there, we have got no idea how it's like. And because People's Park, the old People's Park is the main hub for the people who are interested in textile, especially now, it's the toiletries, right? Everybody knows that you're going to get cheaper toiletries, you go to the old People's Park. So you don't go there and buy one item, you go and buy a basket full of them, And these are very small shops. They cannot keep all the inventories. So where I stay in my block is where they keep all the inventories. So what was intended to be a row of shops that stretches across from People's Park all the way to Red Star, right, in that area, did not really work out. Of course, they are still required to operate normally as a shop rather than as a warehouse. But they have to try and make do whatever we can because the turnover is very high. If you look at the amount of people who buy toiletries there, it's a lot.
I didn't know that actually.
But a number of them are closed. One of them that Doris has got to know has already closed, I think, sometime this year.
Which floor is this? Is this second floor, third floor?
Third floor.
Third floor.
Second floor is a very interesting community by itself. Yeah. This the third floor. I mean, it's a third floor on the block 34, but the toiletries are on third floor and second floor of the old People's Park, right? and there used to be one that sells a lot of things for kids, for babies, right? From strollers, everything, Unfortunately, before I could even get somebody to interview them, they have already start shrinking their shops and even their so-called warehouse. But unfortunately, the uncle who wanted to continue because that's his life passed away, and the wife thinks that alone she cannot take it. And anyway, her children are all grown up, and so now there's one empty space at Block 34.
So do you think in a way the HDB has a place in the Chinatown heritage? Those flats that were built there, whether the podium blocks or your block, which is standalone HDB, standard HDB, in the heritage of Chinatown, actually. It's not just the shop houses or the pre-war houses, but also the more recent HDB flats.
Yeah, I would think that, like, if you look at the old people's park, hawker center and all this, the textile shops, the toiletries, it's a very fascinating place because it keeps on evolving, right? I don't know the economics of it, whether they get a new bid from HDB or the subtenants, which I suspect they are subtenants. There are assignments. That means somebody gave out and somebody took over. Some of textiles are making a revival by getting new designs, and the young people are going there to pick up these new designs to make into fancy food bags for their own, and those pouches, all this kind of thing. So there's an evolution from the first time when it was originally intended, right, for the replacement of the old people's park market site. I think that's a fascinating history. The question is whether can you find the old people, old tenants? I know there's still one group of, I suppose, textile tenants that every 7 months they will come back here to do prayers, but they might only have a very few number of participants that is still existing in the old people's park. But
you mean
living far away.
Are they still operating?
Only a few.
Only a few.
That 7 months is still operating. The interesting part about 7 month organization is they felt, in a way, I suppose, indebted to the forces that support them during that time, and they will continue so long as somebody is willing to organize that simple ceremony, some food, and everybody come together and each one get one share. It continues. So that is the only one that survived the COVID in Chinatown. The other parts, there's a bigger one with the Santang one is gone. The other one at People's Park Complex that used to tear down some of the stores in front of the entrance to make way for 7 months prayer during that 1 week no longer exists. So there's no more 7 month prayer in People's Park Complex. So another kind of local culture is disappearing, and some has already disappeared.
Is it better then to think of Old Chinatown as something that, as you said, that keeps on changing, keeps on evolving? And another example, of course, is all those new mala stores, and the new Chinatown that is like new citizens or the tourists from the mainland, rather than like a snapshot, right? Like a photograph. This is Old Chinatown and it's kind of fixed, or it's something that is changing. What is Old Chinatown in your view?
I don't think we can ever bring back Old Chinatown, right? People are gone, behaviors change, culture is gone in various ways. You're not going to have a shop selling chakia, clocks,
Yeah.
So it will involve economics will determine, and because of the lifting of the rent control, the whole place has changed drastically. Unfortunately, because of high rental, only certain businesses can take it, right? Traditional business cannot, and that's where I think some of us are always asking, hey, maybe this is where HDB can do a part, right? There are still a lot of empty shops around. Why not make it into a artist village, make it into a heritage artisans village where they was a nominal fee, rental, they could do their work and keep that alive. I think the NAC has done a good job in the sense that they have offered or given some of those upper story, second story, third story of shop houses along Smith Street to the arts organization, right? So that is actually in a way, very interestingly, that is in a way the essence of what's left in Chinatown. Although not all of them were originally in Chinatown, but some are. I just went to the 111th anniversary opera show of this Ewu or Iwu, and it's still there, it's still very vibrant, and they have gone up to date. I mean, you would think that it's a very old Teochew opera, right? But the translations are fabulous. I'm sure they get very professional, and the performers are very interesting. There's still some young ones that still perform very well, and we were talking about how to make this the essence of Chinatown, the old, in a way the old, but in the new, right? To introduce to the younger people, and of course they always say, where the Singaporeans go, the tourists will go, not the other way around. And how do we make Chinatown something that the Singapore people appreciate it? There's still a lot of history about Chinatown that we can talk about, but definitely we cannot bring those things back into Chinatown as a physical structure in that sense, because they cannot survive. Economic wise, they cannot survive unless you have the building. Like for instance, Dong Heng bought the building in the early days, right, when they were in a way pushed out of Smith Street, and they survived COVID because they own the building, and then thanks to their own what I call people within that family organization, they have transformed, right, to meet the young crowd, right. So you have old taste, new crowd, right. So the Tam Tak is like one of the most famous in Singapore, and they have come up very jazzy kind of packaging, right. Everybody loves to carry around, and when you look at it, you know where it's from. So I think a lot of works needs to be done, but we cannot just say transform everything and forget about old Chinatown, because without the old Chinatown, there's no new Chinatown. How many of us still remember the old Chinatown? So that is why I think I'm very interested in the Chinatown Heritage Center, because that shows, in a way, a snapshot of the Cantonese Chinatown. Although now I think it's expanding towards the Chinatown, the greater Chinatown that covers the Teochew and the Hokkien. I'm sure if they can include Hainanese and others. So, and then the Clans Association, right? So I think the Chinatown Heritage Center can play a bigger role than just focusing on the Cantonese Chinatown. So it's a conversation now. How to bring the locals in to talk about conversation, how to then share with people who are interested. Like before COVID, we organized one panel session on Chat Jie, right? Qixi, right? The Seven Sisters Festival, because it was like almost disappeared. Save a few families who still kind of observe it. And thanks to the people who are interested, we actually have a panel discussion in Cantonese. And a lot of them brought the older folks to join in. And of course, thanks to Chinatown Heritage Center, they offered us the space free, because it's like in a way, in individual what I call it, initiative supported by Heritage Society in that sense. And so we got no money, right? So everything is like, okay, everything free, yeah. Speakers will not be given honorarium, whatever. But the crowd was overwhelming that we have to do live streaming, right? And the most, I think, to me, the most interesting part and rewarding part was the sharing by the old folks, right? Because it's in Cantonese, so they can understand, they can share. And then we have a friend who actually came along to interpret Cantonese to English for her niece. So you see, there's a reversal of roles, but there's an interest in the heritage in the sense. We hope within the next year or so, we could do one on the Sean Kai.
Same concept.
My idea is the same concept. And of course, now we have more attractive or more interest because we are trying to get Yu Chong to talk about his life living there. He lives in Shanghai, and then he's painting all this. So that's one. We try to get a few people who live in Sagoling, including one Taoist priest who actually stay overnight every time so that he's early in the morning to do rituals. It's not something everybody likes to talk about because it's about death.
Yeah.
But I think we are open enough now to talk about it before it's completely gone. So I hope that can happen. But all depends on who is willing to come forward to do the organizing.
Who is willing to come forward? I'm sure there are people who are willing to come forward, right?
There are lah, there are lah. So the thing is everything must come together, right?
Yes.
You must have a space, and then you must get the different people who are willing to talk. And we hope to do it in Cantonese because we don't want to lose the essence of it. And if there are older folks who are still around, they could actually share with us that street. It's quite an experience living in that kind of street. But at the same time, poverty and other situations just cannot. I mean, you just cannot help it but to live in that street where it's happening, right?
What do you think of the recent announcement that they are going to revamp Smith Street?
I think at least there is an attempt, right? Otherwise, that street is going to remain very quiet. Like now, you go down there, it's like a street of silence. The challenge is always finding somebody who is willing to talk about business with heritage that is also means also culture and arts. And I mean, often arts and culture don't work very well with business, meaning the economics of it. Of course, to whoever is going to take that one, question is, can I break even? Right? The P&L, right? But this is the part that I think the government agencies can support. Like in a lot of places, if you don't charge them very high, right, then that is an easy startup. Right? I think some hawker centers, especially private ones, right, they work on profit sharing in that sense, so that even airport, I think used to work on profit sharing, so that when times are good, we got to share lah. But when times are bad, we also have to share the load, the responsibility, so that I can keep it going on. And I think it will take some time before the new idea can take up. And anybody who's willing to take up the place will always look at dollar and cents, right? First, the main so-called main tenant will have to consider the framework, the idea, what are you going to do for that space. Then you got to identify who are the potential ones. It doesn't mean that you identify them, they will come. And for that one to come, it's always the risk. If you set up shop down there, what is the investment cost? Will it have returns? Right? Are you prepared to run short-term programs? Right? In other words, do we have a company that runs like an event company, changing events every 3 months, interacting with anybody, everybody, from free market of the young people selling to the older people, and operas, right? There's a lot of places where you can do a lot of mock operas down there. Somebody has given me an idea 1 decade ago, but nobody wants to take up because it's too daunting, to get somebody to go and sing at the balcony of Lam Chun, I mean, there is something that's very interesting, but you need people with artistic, how do you call it, vision. Right? Artists can do a lot of things, but then when it comes down to the bottom line, will you make money?
Yeah.
So I think those are challenges, but so long there is a tender for people to come in, there's hope. Right? I was there watching the first briefing, and I saw quite a lot of people interested in that tender. But of course, that does not transform into actual one. So the question now becomes, who's going to get the award? and how he or she or that company is going to transform that. That I think there are a lot of Chinatowns around the world that has been very successful, but maybe because their crowd is quite different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we cannot just compare them, but I think ideas can be picked up and then modified.
Maybe you can join a group and join the tender.
The end of the day is that I need a godfather, all right, who can say, all right, I will take care of the finances and make sure that it meets that requirement, all right. I mean, idea is of course is like how you call it. Even then, it's kind of difficult. Like social enterprise where you set a whole thing and then you get all the salaries and profits can be given to something can be plowed back into Chinatown. But it's easier said than done because it's not something that an entrepreneur is prepared to do unless he has reached that stage whereby he felt that he should return back to society.
You mentioned just now the the Seyangkai project, right? What other projects are you currently involved with that you might want to share?
Mine is always on and off. Of course, I have always got a lot of crazy ideas to share to those friends in Chinatown, right? And say, hey, how about doing this and that, like Bak Kut Teh, right? Bak Kut Teh is always the big discussion. Everybody's saying what is Bak Kut and what is Teh. And I was complaining that, hey, nowadays I see a lot of stores in hawker centers got Bak Kut and no Teh, right? And of course, some of them feedback to me and say, hey, because they are not allowed to have the open fire for the tea. So again, it's a question of how do we get those solutions with the authorities and say, don't because of certain rigid rules, we lose our culture, right? Of course, those in the restaurants, they can do it like, restaurants, not necessarily all restaurants will still want to do because unless they understand the story of Bak Kut Teh. So I was sharing with this friend of mine, right, who owns the Nanyang Tea, which supplies to 80% of the Bak Kut Teh stores and shops in Singapore, and say, why not have a Bak Kut Teh festival, right? Of course, again, it's not universal in Singapore because Bak Kut Teh is basically pork, but we can always have another version added to it. There's always the vegetarian Bak Kut Teh and see which vegetarian restaurants serve the best Bak Kut Teh. And there's one store in Eunos that sells Bak Kut Teh using beef, right? So it can be a big one like in the food festival. It can be a small one in Chinatown, depending on who's going to take up lah. Because these are ideas I can give, but I cannot take up because it's you need all the connections, you need all the ideas to talk to people, right? And if possible, sponsorship from the government agencies, not necessarily in money, but I say, hey, if you endorse with a poster that all the Bak Kut Teh store can post down there and say, hey, I support this festival. And for this festival, I'm going to offer a special edition of our own Bak Kut Teh, right? Everybody has their own recipes. So these are things that I only can talk, and then see the time comes when all the stars are aligned. Then happen. Yeah. So a lot of small things like this are even the Cantonese sweet desserts. There's a lot of Cantonese sweet desserts. And of course, on top of it, they have the most, I think. But then you still have the Hokkien, the Teochews, and other sweet desserts as well.
Right.
We hope that the Chinatown Heritage Center or the Smith Street can pick this up as some themes in certain period, certain time of the year. Like this Friday, we're going to have the winter solstice, and to the southerners, the Tang Yan is probably the ubiquitous one.
Do you currently still need research assistance and because I remember I suggested a couple of my former students to help you with the Chinese, right? What kinds of like research expertise, research volunteers do you need?
I think alone I cannot do it because I'm not trained. I'm not trained in research. All right. So I probably would not be doing well in terms of the objectives, the mission, and all this. Usually, I try to work with researchers, right? People like you, or the professors in the universities, who has a pool of students who can help, and it's two-way, right? We tap on the students and the researchers' expertise in terms of how you go about doing it, the language, the documentation, and even the presentation of papers, because papers becomes very important to convince other people of it. So I think that is one part of it. And of course, if we use students to do it, indirectly we influence them on our whatever you're doing, right? The culture, the heritage. So it's a two-way. And that's why I always will go and cut through people like you all lah, and say, hey, there's something here that you're interested. You got anybody who would like to study, maybe for his thesis or whatever it is. And I try to help everybody. Like we have, I think, two or three who came to approach me and others to do on Chinatown. I think we have one Singaporean from UK studying UK. We have one, interestingly, Vietnamese lady who's very interested doing her masters in Holland. And recently, we have this Charles from Pennsylvania University doing a PhD.
Yeah, that's right. I met him also.
Chinatown.
Yeah.
We met him also, right? So it's quite interesting. But I hope we have more from Singapore.
I mean, you talk about getting people to come and share, the old people, the old folks, and all that. I think that is very important, right? Rather than just we doing something for them, but they participate and maybe they can actually be a big part of the efforts.
Yeah, in fact, I have some crazy ideas that I want to share at SHC, because that is one so-called one platform, right? So I was telling them that they should have a resource library or a resource center, right? Because from a resource center, I mean, it's only logical, right? If you want to do any research on Chinatown, who do you find? That could be one resource center, right?
You.
And uh, and it
Find
can link
you,
up.
and then you tell people where to go.
If I can,
currently there isn't something like that, right? I mean, what is the closest resource center now? Like those the clan associations or the federation, right?
Yeah, but I don't think they have anything that is very specific in that sense. I believe some of them have, like the SCCC has their own resource center now.
Right.
FCCC, I'm not too sure whether they have, right? But if we start small, like in the Chinatown one, where we focus on Chinatown, which is kind of disappearing because the old folks are not around, and it takes a bit more effort to track down, but there still are. And if we have projects with the university and the students, we can even do it like, okay, we catch up about this old lady, auntie who want to share, and go and interview the person, record on video, and this becomes a resource data that maybe might not be used in the near future, but when somebody is interested in looking at it, even like MediaCorp or whoever, it is there, because by the time you are thinking of doing something, these people are gone.
Yeah, right? I saw on your blog, right? You there were some interviews that you shared, right? Cantonese people. That was like more than 10 years ago, right? You shared this 2020. There was an interview with Ma Jie and then some tailor.
So this was done. This was done on the initiative of I believe, the Chinatown Business Association at that time.
Oh, okay.
I think when Jennifer was involved in the one, I remember I picked up one on this old lady who was selling charcoal in Temple Street.
Yeah.
Right. And then I discovered that her son was my neighbor. It's my neighbor. And I was talking to him downstairs. Hey, this, can we come and talk to your mother? No. Unknowingly, and he could not tell me because it was COVID time. Her wake was just behind us at the HDB flat down there, So we missed a chance. We didn't know she was not there.
All these ladies, sorry, so amazing to see this very old, right? These were actually very, maybe in the 80s already, talking, and still very, their memory was still very good. But they were very short also. Were these the full interviews, or was this just a clip?
I don't know.
Uh,
But I suspect, you see, most of these are done in a way as part of a, how to call it, minor project, something to be done,
yeah,
and not a academic kind of thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so that's why a lot of these kind of touch and go lah.
Yes, yes,
There's no
yes, correct.
continuity to me, you see.
And those clips
And,
were
and
like 7, 8 minutes, and they were very superficial. It's not just the
yeah,
length, right? But they didn't really ask more deeply, or they didn't seem very curious to find out more about the business or the job.
I suppose so. Like, even if you ask me to do it, it will be something like that. because I mean, you have to be trained to be
Yeah,
able to think of 10 questions with one answer, right?
yeah.
So I think this is something that if we could do it is best. The other thing is
Mm.
also in the NAS, there's a lot of oral archives
Yeah, yeah.
in Chinatown in Cantonese.
Mm.
So there's one I was still listening to is on 37 Pagoda Street, and that's the Chichai lah. Uh, because you know the Peranakan towns has moved to 37, and this lady who used to be active in, or used to work in the ministry was telling me that you know that was the one that actually has a long history of the labor thing in those days. And I listened to the first few episodes. It was very interesting, but it's in Cantonese. And you're talking about old Cantonese, some of which I might not even really understand. But can you imagine those are small things that if we can put them into a story form with a small clip here and there, tie them up together, I think we understand the history of Chinatown better. Now they told me that the 37 Pagoda Street is not the same building as what the Museum, Peranakan Towers is. So I'm trying to find out where was the old 37 Pagoda Street.
Uh,
So could start asking. I was asking the General Secretary of Suntak Association, and he think he should be opposite the Suntak Association at Pagoda Street. They already shifted out already, so it could be somewhere near to the Wakaf, buildings down there, I think. So
mm.
there's a lot of things to discover, and the other thing that we hope that maybe the students can do is cultural mapping lah. The last time we got the LKY SPC to do one some years back. It was pretty good, but we need constant mapping to understand, especially in Chinatown. They keep on changing. Every
Mm.
week I go, I see a new tenant. I suppose as you walk the streets, you know, a lot of ideas come in, and I make it a point almost every week I would do at least one walk around the Cantonese Chinatown to see what's happening. And then I have my favorite place. I know the Chinatown complex for my branch. The Habka Fun is now my new watering hole for the Cantonese desserts. Sometimes with friends, we will go to the basement of the Tooth Relic Temple where they serve very good vegetarian food and tea and all this. So there's a lot of places to explore.
Do you do
Uh,
walking tours, Victor?
I'm not a licensed guide, so I cannot do walking tours. But once in a while, working with STB or NHB, I will do tours, maybe like Mooncake Festival, Chinese New
Mm.
Year,
Mm.
things like this, which is outside the normal, what do you call it, the normal scope of the
Yeah.
tour guides.
You talk about all these changes, right? I think the last question is there a place for the new citizens from China and the more recent, history and the heritage that the mainland Chinese have brought? When we talk about heritage of Chinatown and what Chinatown would be in future.
I think I'm not too sure because I'm not familiar with the activities of MCCY. I think there's some kind of immersion program now there. It would be good actually. I know that some of them organizing such kind of tours in related to MCCY for the new citizens, right?
Mm.
And I think the new the new citizens from China, they are always very curious about the Chinese in Singapore. In those days, when there were kind of programs or festivals like in Bukit Pasoh, right, where the clans open house and things like this, you will find that most of the people who visit them are mainland Chinese, whether they are tourists or whether they are citizens, because they are very curious. They want to ask. It would be good if the likes of MCCY or the clan associations, to which some of them would join. You're talking mainly of the southern Chinese, right? I believe some of the southern Chinese clans have already got a lot of mainland Chinese new citizens in Singapore. But there's still a lot of so-called northern Chinese who also become Singapore citizens. Whether they have the clans or not, we're not too sure. Some of them have formed their own, right? So I'm not too sure. I only know that the one that's furthest north that was here for quite a while was the Sanjiang, right? The Sanjiang Hui Guan. But I'm not too sure, like Shantung, because my neighbors are Shantung, from Shantung.
Right.
So I'm not too sure. It will be good because then through them, the children will get to understand. I mean, the children are already speaking like Singaporean already, right? More English than Chinese. So you can imagine the erosion starts already. But we need them to understand the local Chinese history, heritage, so that they can empathize. Right? Sometimes from indirect information, how true I do not know, is that whenever temples have celebrations, they have dinners in the housing estates, everything, there's noise. And some of the complaints could come from this group of people, not necessarily Chinese, the other new citizens as well. There's noise, But the older Chinese, they tolerate because this is part and parcel of the culture. Right? So I think these are all the things that definitely there's always something that's not enough. We still need to keep on talking. And how, when they move into the condos or when they move into the HDB flats, is there anybody kind of welcoming them and bringing them in the community? In the old days, probably in the other parts of the world, the incumbents, the residents will make it a point to welcome their new neighbors. And the new neighbors will go around to introduce themselves to the old neighbors. But I think this is not the kind of thing that we do in Singapore, right? Not that I know of lah. Although they tried, like my Shantung neighbors, thanks to them, I always get to enjoy a lot of Shantung food. Right? And for us, we don't cook, so we will give something that is typical local, like some Cantonese pastry or whatever that might be.
Yeah, I mean, historically, Chinatown was always the reception place for the Singke, right? So
Yes.
waves of immigrants have always become local, in a sense, in Chinatown. So that could be something that Chinatown can continue to do, right?
Yeah, I suppose it's just like all this now. Singke will become the bouquet, right? And whatever mala food that we may say that it's not to our taste, that will become our heritage 10, 20 years down the road. Especially young people likes it. So why not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Right.
not just like mala food, right? We are getting to eat a lot of northern Indian food compared to my young days when we only eat prata only. So that's a lot to learn. But it's good because we get to enjoy, right? I always tell people, I can have Chinese chi chong fan for breakfast and roti prata or nasi biryani for lunch, and maybe Japanese for dinner.
In your memory, when was the earliest time, right, that you can remember the mainland Chinese, whether as business or residents, first appeared in Chinatown? The oldest one, like how far do they go back to?
Offhand, I cannot remember since when the northern Chinese restaurants started appearing. But I think when they appeared, it was almost like a rush, one after another start coming in. I cannot remember since when it started, because I know in the early days it's so difficult to find, like instance, ramen, right?
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah.
Zhajiang men, there are one or two outside Chinatown. There's one in Lower Delta, I think it's no more, where interestingly the Japanese love Zhajiang men, right? Uh, and I think in Chinatown, if I'm not wrong, probably the Mr. Noodle Man is one with the oldest ramen, and they have the Zhajiang men and all this down there. But that's a local. It's a locally created, not by the Chinese, the mainland Chinese who come here and decided to do this kind of business. But they are growing. The number of northern Chinese food is growing. Yeah, there's a lot. And my only complaint is my favorite ramen that's from China has stopped pulling the noodles already. I suppose he has got some muscular problem, whatever it is, and the taste is different, right? After you've tasted ramen, I tasted ramen in Nanjing for a good 2 months. There's a difference between the hand pull noodles and the machine ramen. Well, we are fortunate in that we can taste all kinds of food in Singapore.
Well, thanks a lot, Victor. I especially like your idea about the human library. Maybe that's something we can, work on and interview those, who have memories to share while they're still with us.
Yeah, I think if you can help by giving some guidelines on what can be done, call it the crowdsourcing of because there are a lot of people who might be talking to somebody over cup of tea or coffee, and if we could just have some idea and then put on the handphone and say, hey, can we record? We might have some first-hand information first before we go for formal. It takes a while to get formal interview, but off the cuff interview can be done easily, especially with your relatives. That's what I always do with my mom.
What you recorded? How many
Yeah,
recordings do you have already?
sometimes I'll do recording, like, and tell me stories or what is it like, because uh, there's a lot of stories that probably she told you that we all never know about.
Which I'm trying to do also with Chronicles. So if there are people you think I can speak to, whether it's Chinatown or some other old places, let me know.
Sure. At least I know there's one resource.
Thank you so much, Victor, for your time. We have spent 2 hours talking about
Wow.